Hey everybody, today we're talking about ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. I'm Tim Alatorre, Principal Architect of Domum. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about what you can do thanks to some new laws that passed in California on January 1st. There is a whole lot more, lots of opportunities. If you thought you couldn't expand or build onto your house before, well, these new laws might make it possible for you to get a little extra space, maybe have your in-laws live on the property, or have a little rental income on the side. Stay tuned. New laws are intended to help the housing shortage in California by making the ADU development process easier. There's 4 laws, and we're going to dive into each one of these. Before we get into Bill 881, let's talk about some of the common problems people have had with developing accessory dwelling units on their property. So in California and most places, let's say this is your property line, you have what are called setbacks. And what this means is that a certain distance from the back of your property, the side of your property, and the front of your property, you can't build. So your house has to be within the limits of that boundary, right? And usually, most subdivisions especially, the developers try to push the house to the edge of those setbacks. You might have a little space in the back, but sides and front are normally right up against the setbacks. If you live on larger property, you're not going to have this problem, but again, most subdivisions. So if you wanted to build, let's say prior to January 1st, if you wanted to add onto your house, you were limited to these areas within the setback, right? Now, there's always been some exceptions to this. Typically, accessory structures like a shed or a chicken coop or something like that could go outside of those setbacks, but actual livable space where you're sleeping and living in has to be within those setbacks. First bill we're going to talk about is Assembly Bill number 881. So prior to January 1st, if you wanted to build an accessory dwelling unit, you were constrained by the setbacks on the property. So most properties, so there's a property line here, we got our property boundaries here, you have certain setbacks. Like the typical might be, let's say you have 10 feet on the side and 15 feet on this side, for example. You might have 25 feet in the front and 20 feet in the back. Well, your main house typically goes right up to that. Especially if you're in a subdivision, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. Your house is probably built right on that setback. And if you wanted to build an accessory dwelling unit, you were also limited by that boundary unless you sought a variance, which can be very expensive and time consuming. So Bill 881 now allows you to build that ADU within 4 feet of the property line. That's a huge change. Now, there are certain building code regulations that come into effect when you're less than 5 feet from the property line, but being able to build within 4 feet opens up a lot of options, especially if you have a swimming pool or another constraint on the property. Now, another big change with Bill 881 is the maximum allowed area for your ADU. What it's done is it's increased the minimum size that jurisdictions have to allow you to build to 50% of the primary residence up to 1,200 square feet. So let's say your main house was 3,000 feet, you could build a 1,200 square foot ADU. Now, let's say your main house is only 1,100 square feet. Well, Bill 881 also allows you a minimum size of 800 square feet. So if your house is less than 1,600 square feet, you can still build 800 square feet. So that's for your primary ADU. Now, also, you can have a junior ADU, and that one, you're allowed up to 500 square feet for that. And that can be like if you're doing a garage conversion, right? Most garages are about 400 square feet. So you can do a junior ADU and convert that up to 500 square feet. And we'll get into that a little bit later about the law that talks about that. So that's a big change. The other thing is that Bill 881 restricts jurisdictions and reduces the time that they have to respond to you and your application. It used to be 120 days. Now it's only 60 days. So that's a big time savings. That cuts it in half. And the last thing that Bill 881 does is it removes the owner occupancy requirement. So if you have, let's say your main house, you're renting it out, you can now build a junior ADU, let's say in the garage or tacked onto another part of the house, and a main ADU. So you can have now 3 rental properties on one property. So that's a huge change. Okay, so this next bill is an interesting one. It's bill number 670. Now, a lot of people watching this might live in an HOA, and you're thinking, my HOA restricts ADUs. I can't have an accessory dwelling unit, not allowed. Well, Bill 670 eliminates HOA and CCNR or neighborhood groups from regulating your choice to build on your lot. So if you have an HOA and you're thinking, I can't build an ADU, all those CCNRs and HOA regulations that prohibit you from doing that are now null and void. Now, it's going to be interesting to see as 2020 plays out exactly how that's going to be enforced, but legally in the state of California, those CCNRs, those regulations that restrict you from developing an ADU in your garage or attached to your property or your house are no longer in effect. Okay, this next Senate bill is one that I really like because it really helps where it hurts in your wallet. Senate Bill number 12 changes local agencies' ability to enforce and levy impact fees on you for developing your ADU. So, for example, if I wanted to build a 550 square foot ADU, as long as I am under 750 square feet, the city and counties cannot assess impact fees for my ADU. So 550 feet, no impact fees. Now there still will be plan check fees and some other fees that don't count as impact fees, but it can still save you a ton of money. Now if you want to push it and you go bigger, like let's say an 800 square foot ADU, well now those impact fees would be assessed. But if you're 750 square feet and lower, it's going to save you a lot of money. That went into effect on January 1st, 2020 is Assembly Bill number 68. Now this one is really interesting because it allows you to not just build one ADU, but two ADUs. Now what you can do is you have what's called a junior accessory dwelling unit, or a JADU. And this allows you to have an attached unit on your house. Let me get my purple one here. Allows you to do an attached unit. Well, actually my garage here would be a junior ADU. We can just call that our junior ADU. And then it allows you to still build a second ADU that's attached. So this now effectively makes every property in California that's zoned single-family residential into multifamily residential, because you can have one main unit, a junior ADU, and then a standard ADU. And that's all thanks to Assembly Bill number 68. Okay, so today we've covered a lot of stuff, and there's still so much more to cover. In future videos, we're going to go over pricing. How do you pay for one of these things? The financing side. What are the income possibilities? Long-term lease versus a short-term lease like Airbnb. We're also going to talk about some of the different ways to build this. Stick-framed, prefab, pre-manufactured. We're going to go into all of that. But today, just to summarize what we're going to talk about, or what we did talk about, is we talked about the setbacks, right? So you can now build your ADU within 4 feet of the property line. The other thing we touched on is the maximum square footage, 800 square feet for the primary ADU and up to 500 square feet for your junior ADU. Now remember, the primary ADU can go bigger, up to 50% of your house size. It also might be limited by the jurisdiction. Typically we're seeing 1,000 to 1,200 square feet is the max size for your primary ADU. We also talked about the parking requirement. If you move the parking out of or if you take parking, for example, and now you can't park in your garage, you don't have to replace that. So that's a huge win there. We talked about the processing time. Now jurisdictions only have 60 days to process your application. And big one, we talked about fees. If you go under 750 square feet, that's the magic number. Impact fees aren't assessed. So hopefully this opened your eyes to some of the options and possibilities. If you have a property you're thinking about putting an ADU on, feel free to contact us. If you go to domum.design/ADU, we have a whole section of resources, videos. We're going to be putting up more guides and more information. We also have stock plans you can download. And stay tuned. Make sure, however you're following us, whatever system or platform you're on, subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. That way you don't miss the next videos, because we're going to have a lot of information. So until next time, I'm Tim Alatorre with Domum, and good luck with whatever you're planning for 2020. We wish you the best.